in 10 minutes, so now is a great time to go to the bathroom. There's one behind that wall and in the front lobby as well. Now is a great time to get some water, go to the bathroom, do what you need to do so that you don't have to get up out of your seats later. Cool.
So a friend of mine
Showtime. All right. Hello, everyone. Hi. Welcome to Meteor Devshop. This is, yay! This is the first Dev Shop of 2014. So thank you for being here. And to our friends on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. I'd like to give a special shout out to our friends in Seattle and Vancouver who are at a meetup watching this live stream right now. So you guys and everyone else, don't forget to subscribe. The button is right here. Can you guys see it too? Yeah, so don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And our first speaker today is Aaron Cammarata. He's a video game designer. He's the designer of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater game and some other Pixar games as well. And yeah. He's one of the founders of Void Alpha. And today he's going to be telling you about a Meteor and Unity integration, full-page gaming. So here's Aaron.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, so I was one of the level designers on Tony Hawk and some Pixar games, as was mentioned. And what I would like to talk to you about today is sort of something, a really cool solution that we stumbled on that I kind of want to show both sides of the equation, what it looks like when the two cool technologies come together. So full-page gaming is a combination of Unity and Meteor. So this room knows Meteor. How many know what Unity is or have heard of it? Okay, so, oh, awesome, like 80%. So Unity is a 3D engine and tool set for building games. And the idea is sort of write once, deploy many. So you can send it to iOS native, PlayStation 3, Wii, and one of the build targets is a they call it the WebPlayer. And so basically your gamers would install a Unity plugin and then play your game, and it handles the rendering to canvas and sound management and things like that. So to us, it was sort of the real-time goodness of Unity plus the near real-time reactivity of Meteor, and it ended up resulting in something really interesting. So first, some administrivia, I have to tell you. The game and the technology you're going to see were developed under a contract with DARPA, and the game is really unique and the parameters are really interesting. It's basically a crowdsource, a hard problem kind of a game. So if you want to learn more, Google crowdsourced formal verification. We've got some info on DARPA and Wired and The Escapist and a couple other places. And of course, I'm speaking only for myself. So with that, who are we? The quick sales pitch, we're Void Alpha, a game studio. We're over here in Emeryville, we're local. And our specialty is working with folks who are going from sort of concept to initial execution. We do a mix of our own games and some service, game services. So if you know anyone who's interested, we love working with people with fresh new ideas who are really excited but don't know how to get started. So give us a shout. So what is full-page gaming? It's a term that I just came up with, but really it's the chocolate and peanut butter of web gaming. So if you've played web games and HTML5 games, right, there's sort of a ceiling that you hit pretty quickly in terms of technology. Basically, the browser is not a renderer. It's not a 60 frames per second, 3D, texture-mapped, fogged, particle effect, multiple sound effects. If you've ever tried to play more than one sound effect, synchronized in a web page, that's kind of non-trivial. Unity handles sort of all of that for you. And then, of course, Meteor gives you the near real-time stuff. And I don't know of anyone else who's joined these two. A good example to show you kind of the value of this is imagine a real-time racing game, and we've got all these Formula One cars ripping around the track with physics and squealing tires and smoke effects. And when somebody passes someone else, Unity sends that event off, and then Meteor just handles it. And reactively, we see a leaderboard do a CSS animation, and we know my lap time compared to yours, and the time to beat and stuff like that. And so there's all these features that you can do and add to your game that nobody, I think, is looking at. Another good example would be if you're into like online RPGs and you have a trade house and you have a bunch of trades that are out and somebody buys your sword and Meteor tells you. There are all these sort of long operations that happen in games these days that the Meteor reactivity is actually really good at. So And then there's other things like Meteor handles, the login integration and social media stuff that when you try to put that into a game, you kind of have to reinvent the wheel every single time. So it's a real accelerator for some of these, ancillary features. So the game that we built is called Stormbound, and it's a puzzle game with a twist. And the twist is that as you play the puzzle game, your answers to each level are sent off to the server and contribute to solving a very hard math problem. Again, the discussion of it is out of scope, but that results in some really interesting design challenges. So unlike sort of basic puzzle games, usually you're racing against a timer or a particular configuration that you have to get to, like Sudoku, we actually don't know if your answer is right or not until we look at it more closely. And so we want both the real-time sexiness of particles and sounds and all that stuff, and that's what we get from Unity, but we also have some short and intermediate and long-term operations. So for example, you may send us an answer, and we don't know for a while whether it's any good. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a little bit dark, I apologize. So we may not know for minutes or days whether your answer is the right answer. So imagine if you finished a Sudoku and you said, I think, and you had to wait for someone to grade it. So Meteor gives us a hook to say, okay, I finished grading your paper, you get some points. And so I'm going to demonstrate that shortly. And then additionally, sometimes your answer is right, and then it turns wrong. And that, I've never seen that in a game. It's like I killed the dragon, and then I didn't, So there's some really hard game design problems that we had to tackle. And the end result is this is kind of what it looks like, but rather than just show you a screenshot, that's my plan B in case it doesn't work. But instead, let's just actually go play it. Oh, that's right. I forgot to plug in the... There we go. Okay. Sorry. Thank you. All right. Cool. Oh, actually, so I brought up Unity just so that you guys could see a little bit. This is sort of the Unity development environment, and so I can click play, and this is actually some cool brand new stuff. Let's see if, there we go. So, as I go down, I get all the, animation and particles of different types. They're shaders and animations and so on. So the idea is you come in here, and this is where you manage your project and so on, just so you have a concept of what that is. Here's the game. This is our production server. Oh, sweet. Looks like somebody put up a failed answer. So here is the Unity game, this rectangle here, embedded in a Meteor page, right? So there's a Meteor client wrapped around this Unity plugin. And what I'm going to demonstrate here quickly is sort of information coming out of Unity to the Meteor client and up to the server and back, and then the other way, where the Meteor client is driving the Unity client. So down here on the rest of the page, we have information about my character, his score, my level, and then this in the middle is sort of the status of my puzzles. So every time I solve a puzzle, I get credit for it. So you can see in this area, Mines 1, I've solved 64 puzzles, and then 47 in Mines 2, etc. But particularly, I want you to look at the fact that this Mines 1 is kind of grayed out a little bit, which shows that I have no sort of pending actions on it. So I'm going to go into the mining crater, and I'm going to play a game in Mines 1, and we'll see if it loads up a puzzle here. There we go. So this is what the game sort of looks like, and I get, the multi sound effects and particles and all that stuff that I was talking about. Can kind of use all these tools. It's way out of scope for me to explain what all this is. There's tutorials. Go play it. Yes. All right. So I'm going to put some solution in. So I'm going to answer this puzzle with one answer, and actually I can keep answering. But anyway, so what I want you to watch is that when I create an answer in the game, it actually sends that answer to the Meteor client, which goes up to the server. And if I got it right, then down here you'll see Mines 1 reactively changes to green, telling me that my answer was actually good enough for me to get some points. So I collect experience points, and now my character gets a little bit stronger. And so I can click on the call to action, and then again, we update my player's score, and then this field over here. You guys know reactivity. But that's really cool. I mean, to me, because I'm a geek, right? So that was information coming from Unity out into the client. Now I want to show you it going the other way. Down here we have our tutorials tree. It's kind of like a skill tree if you're into RPGs. I want to, or Civilization or any of those types of games. And so as you level up and learn more, you kind of learn these tutorials and unlock them, and they're also styled reactively. So the fact that these are all sort of surrounded by black means that I've finished them. If they're locked, then they're red, and so on. So we're definitely doing a lot of CSS styling. But what I can do is click on one. If I want to review it, I can click on the above pattern here, and the page will scroll up for me and take me back to the game and load that tutorial. So now the Meteor client is driving Unity, and so we saw information coming out, information going in. So that's a very quick demo. Any questions so far? Oh, we're going to get to them at the end, actually. So with that, so what does it look like? So I'll tell you up front, this isn't rocket surgery, what we did. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, the pieces are there. What we had to spend a lot of our time on was solving the edge cases. So it's MVC-ish, and the Unity player is the view. It's just presenting data and the puzzle for you and kind of being told what to show by the Meteor client. The Meteor client is really the controller, and then stuff on the server is the model. And that's actually different than most games. Usually the game is the controller because it's the final arbiter of what you're seeing, what you're doing, and so on. And that inversion created a few hiccups that we had to iron out. Sorry, before I go into that, there are two files that we're going to go into a little bit in more detail. Unity Communicator, which is the Meteor piece that talks into Unity, and the client bridge, which talks out. Those are the names. I wish I could change them, but they are what they are, right? So, okay. So Unity Communicator talks into Meteor. Talks into Unity. Thus the name, right? So its major job is it's got a handle to the Unity plugin, right? So it knows where to send its messages. It coordinates with sort of external pieces that Unity doesn't know anything about, like session variables and the Meteor server. It does not know. Unity does not know how to talk to the Meteor server, so it does that facilitation. It also keeps track of the plugin itself because Unity takes a while to load. I already had it loaded, but that can take a few seconds to a minute if it's the first time you loaded the page. And if it's trying to start a tutorial when the plugin's not there, we have to queue it up, and so it kind of deals with some of that stuff. It deals with the integration with the template going away. There's actually a few cases where we have to hide Unity to show some other things. And so, again, it deals with the coordination of that Unity player going away for short periods. And it makes available to, to others things like handle messages. So handle messages is the message queue for Unity, basically, to send out its results and so on. And that actually caused a problem where the player is playing a level and then Meteor is coming back and saying, by the way, your answer was wrong, and meanwhile the client page is trying to say, but I have another answer for you for that same level. So the fact that it's kind of being bombarded was something we had to kind of tease apart. And that's fun. Also, this is something that we found a lot of value in is log stuff to the server. When clients started or players started playing, and they were, we had all console logs all throughout our code. Okay, newbie mistake maybe. And so what we did is we created a Meteor call called debug log, and that allowed us to sit on the server and watch. No matter how many people were playing, we could see, oh, this guy just opened up that tutorial, and that person just started a level. So you could see what, how they got to where they were and things like that. So create a Meteor call that lets you log to the server. And then it also does high-level game flow control. And this is what I mean by it being the controller. If you're on the main menu, then there are certain actions that are allowed and certain ones that aren't. And when you're in a puzzle and you have sort of the dirty bit set on that puzzle, I have some work started but I'm not finished, then you don't want the player to be pulled out of that level by a tutorial that wants to start. And so again, this is where it kind of really is a controller. And then it also handles the answers and the game-specific outbound stuff. And one of the things we had to do there was implement some caching, because it's possible to make many answers very quickly. You can make 10 or 20 answers to one puzzle in a matter of 2 seconds. And when we had a number of clients doing that at the same time, it was really slamming the Meteor server. So we kind of batched them up, and that smoothed out a little bit of the traffic. So from client bridge going out to Meteor, its major job is, it has a handle to the browser that contains it. It sends out queries, we can't send all of the information about the game world into Unity at once. So if I start on the main menu and I say, I want to play a game in this area, that's when Unity says, I need information about that area, right? And Meteor sends it. Of course, my answers to each puzzle have to go out. There's also some last-minute deconfliction. I kind of lied a little before when I said if I'm in the middle of one level and the web page says, no, start this tutorial, it's actually the game that knows whether the dirty bit is set on that particular puzzle. So it does some last-minute deconfliction in a few cases. And then it makes available its message queue so that the web page can talk to it. And of course, all logs inside of Unity go to the client bridge so that they can go to the Meteor client and can end up on the Meteor server. So anything that gets logged, even all the way down in the game, shows up on the server. So we can watch and see when people start a level, what they're doing in the level, and so on, which was really beneficial for us. So some helpful stuff. If you're not already using sort of deploy scripts, I know it's just sort of like mature programming, you know, but in particular, Meteor doesn't know about the Unity file type, and so people were reporting bugs that we had fixed because we didn't know that Meteor was serving an old Unity file. So we implemented a cache buster. It basically puts a timestamp on the file. We had to reinstall fibers because the production, the staging, and the local servers had different star nixes installed, and we put a version number so we could know what people were reporting. Don't log to the client. Again, put it all up on the server so that you can see what's going on from a sort of single view. For sufficiently small values of never, we do put like a touch is local, and then your local machine is not getting completely spammed, but that's a personal choice. And if you're not using log.debug, log.error, log.warn to get colors and cool stuff, then do so. You know, again, we're learning this stuff, and maybe that's obvious, but if anyone else doesn't know. Again, reuse your Meteor logging. So once you have that Meteor call to send debug stuff up to the server, let your Unity game use that as well. And the way we did that is when a Unity entity starts up, you have an on-enable callback, and you can create a log callback handler. So basically what we did is that handle log function multiplexes all logging inside of Unity and sends a copy up to the server. So if you're developing games, often you need to know the time between one thing starting and another and so on, and you need that granularity of logging. So there's a trick in Unity you can do. So why Meteor was awesome for us, so here's our gifts to our hosts. No more SQL. We hit a point where we needed to implement levels that were disabled or locked and didn't know that up front, so the spec changed. And being able to add a couple of fields, of course, is no problem, and it didn't break our schema and our queries and all that stuff, so that was helpful. Of course, it's very, very easy to get started and make changes. A sort of real example is as I said, we sort of log everything that players do, and so that we have all kinds of data on how long you're on the site and all the usual metric-y kind of things. And we were experiencing a problem where people didn't know sort of what levels to play and how long to play and stuff. So we put a quest system in that said, go into this area and do 20 levels. And if you do, we'll give you 500 more experience points. And we could do that, and I think we took 3 days debugged and out on production. Player collaboration, because Meteor knows what you've contributed and you've contributed. One of the key features of the games is I can come in and see that Tim's answer, he thought it was good, but a little bit later we discovered it was not a good answer. I can come in and fix it, and we both get points. So there's message out to all the game designers out there. You can use this to build collaborative features into your games. Bundling, having that all taken care of for us was very handy. And then actually we did end up rolling our own analytics dashboard on top of the collection. Since we knew what players did and when, we actually created our own metrics dashboard on top of it, which was very fun. And similarly, we could use the login handlers to integrate with another server that we had to deal with. So again, if you're in the games world, these are things that are really a pain to implement. And Meteor gives you a lot of hooks for all this stuff. So wrapping up, potential future work. We'd be interested in releasing it if anyone is interested in having this as a package. I'd like to hear that there's interest before we do it. And also I'd like to know what other package authors do in terms of documentation and hardening. It's kind of specific to our game right now. Also, it would be nice if Unity could talk directly to the Meteor server instead of having to go through a coffee stirrer of bits, you know, and have an actual DDP client inside of Unity. And again, the cache busting is a little bit pathological. It just kind of says, here, you need a new file, even if that wasn't the case. So that's OK. Closing, that's the URL if you actually want to play it. I guarantee it's unlike anything you've ever played before. That's as far as I'll go with it. And I think I have a minute, but I guess I'll open it up for questions. Wow. Thank you.
Questions?
Come on, anything at all. Maybe not anything. Oops.
So Unity works with iOS. How much extra work would you need to make this whole thing work with iOS? Will you need a DDP client for Unity to work in iOS? Or?
This game specifically you're asking for. Oh, thank you, yes.
Unity and Meteor in iOS.
So the question is, how much work would it take to get Unity and Meteor into a native iOS app, basically? Do you have any, my Meteor experts here as well, so do you have any comments on that, Lane, that I can echo back?
Well, once Meteor or Unity directly talks to Meteor, buy the license for iOS.
Yeah, okay, so he waved right over the question. Basically, when we did look into the problem of getting Unity to talk directly to Meteor, we want a socket connection, and we didn't see a way to get iOS's WebView to do socket connections. And that may be because we haven't found it yet, so if somebody out there knows, let us know. And I don't know what would be involved in porting the rest of all of the DDP client into you know, Objective-C or whatever. It sounds pretty large. I mean, were you looking for an order of magnitude answer or something?
No, nothing specific. Just what was
Yeah.
involved. So you need a DDP client.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think. And I think I saw one over here. Yes.
How did you guys score DARPA funding?
How did we score DARPA funding? There's a website called FedBizOps, and you can look for projects that are out there. And this one was kind of interesting, so we applied. Yeah. How was the problem phrased or what we signed up for? You can set watchers on that site. There are a number of government funding sites, and you put in a query. So I put video games, and this one came up. Is that what you're kind of looking for? Yeah. We can talk after about the whole application process, but a lot of scope for this. Yeah. Anything else? See? I knew it. Should I just play some more? No. Okay, so.
Yeah.
Over to you. All right, thank you all. Cool.
All right, so if people want to, go to the bathroom right now, we'll take like a 2-minute break, and we'll be right back.
So you can also
And Bill will hold up a sign of 2270. And also, yes. All right, everyone, please have a seat. All right. And we're back. Yay! Our next speaker today is Pete Hunt. Pete is a software engineer at Facebook. He is the author of React, which some of you might be familiar with. He manages the Instagram web team and built most of it. And he also rebuilt Facebook video and Instagram video. And today he's going to be talking to you about functional DOM programming. Pete.
Hey, guys. First of all, I wasn't the only author of React. There's a huge team way smarter than me behind it. So if you guys are watching, sorry. So yeah, my name's Pete. I work on mostly the Instagram website these days. We have a pretty small team, and it's all React. And when we acquired Instagram about a year and a half ago, we decided to try out this crazy new technology that Facebook had. And then one thing led to another, and now I've started contributing to the React core. But this is not a tutorial about React. We're going to talk about functional DOM programming and kind of the benefits that that can bring you. And React is going to be the vehicle for expressing that. And I'm also, along the way, going to demo an integration with Meteor, because that's what you guys are all here for. So everyone here has built a user interface, right? I'm seeing some heads nodding. OK. Everyone have a lot of fun building it? Yeah. I'm sure you never had bugs or regressions or undefined behavior, or you push it to production, and it just works perfectly out of the box, right? So this is like one of the fundamental problems with UI development, right? When I'm working on a back-end service, so for example, I used to work on the back end for Instagram and Facebook video. We wrote a unit test that said, like, when I drop this file into the encode step, at the end, I run ffprobe on it, and it says the video is good. And I have a test, and that test covered a lot of cases. But you can't really test for whether it feels right or not, because it's really hard to manage all the state that users see. So when you build an application, you don't know how big the browser window is going to be. You don't know what platform they're going to be on. You don't know if they did some series of actions that you didn't plan on them actually doing. And we decided, or when we were building applications, we discovered that state changing over time is really the fundamental evil of building UIs. So you can't test every possible path that a user can go through in your application. And so if they go through a path that you don't expect, your state can change over time, and you can find yourself in a state that you didn't plan for, and then your app just doesn't feel right. This is a problem of managing complexity. Mutable state is a very, very complex thing to reason about. And like I said, you can write tests for it, and tests are great. Tests will cover a portion of the bugs that you will find writing UIs. But they can't really check the full user experience. You can also do some static analysis as well. So if anyone here has used JS Hint, for example, or TypeScript is another static analysis tool to help you verify the integrity of your code, it's just not quite the mature solution, at least for developing UIs, for it to be particularly helpful to us. So my approach to building UIs is I don't actually try to be correct at all. I have an alternative, because I feel like trying to be correct out of the box, or right out of the gate, building a UI is really hard and is almost a futile effort. Instead, I just try to build something that's predictable. So I want my app to have the same bug every single time I run it. And I want to be able to click on the same series of buttons and have it respond the same when I'm doing it and when a user does it, whether I'm in whatever platform I'm in. Try to be predictable. It's important. So we've discovered two silver bullets from the functional programming world that help us. And they're not really hardcore functional programming concepts. They're just very basic principles that you can apply to an existing imperative application, or even the jQuery spaghetti app that everyone maintains. You can start applying these principles and gradually refactor your way out of this mess. The first one is composition. It's actually not really a functional programming concept, because it's just a way of combining simple functions, or it's the concept of combining simple functions to create more complicated ones. And this is another example of managing complexity. If you have to think about the entire application in your head, you're not going to be able to figure out why it's behaving the way that it's behaving. And part of that in your toolbox is building strict interfaces. And when you don't have to put all of your application in your head, it's just easier to figure out and predict what's going to happen. So you put the inputs to this subcomponent of your application, and all you need to do is think about, OK, what's that going to do? What's the output going to be? How's it going to affect the greater application? You don't have to think about every other piece. The other tool in our toolbox is idempotence. And this is basically saying when you take some data, you put it into your process, you get the same data out every time. This is the Wikipedia definition. But the important thing is that it's very easy to predict output for a given input. Because it's idempotent, you just run it with the same set of inputs. You'll always get the same set of outputs. Now, the key here is immutability. It's a really easy way to get idempotence for free. What I mean by this is, think about the class of bugs that are easy to track down and that are hard to track down. The easy bugs are when you have a repeatable behavior, and you go and you trace through the debugger, or you drop console.logs, which is my preferred way of debugging, until you find an assumption that you thought would be true and wasn't true. Then you just trace up the call stack, and you figure out what parameter coming in was incorrect, and you fix that. The problem is, if that parameter coming into your code is mutable and is in the wrong state, you now have to track down every single site where something could have possibly mutated that parameter and figure out what the hell is going on. It's actually a really hard problem to solve. So hard, in fact, that I think it's insane to build an application with it. And when I sit down to work on an application that has shared mutable state everywhere, I go crazy. So what we should do is try to make as much of our application state immutable as possible. And we should minimize the amount of mutable state in our applications. So every application is going to need some mutable state. You're going to have to add an item to the to-do list somewhere if you're building that application. But it doesn't mean that you should put mutable state everywhere. So in our to-do list application, the quintessential example, rather than saying, OK, I'm going to append to this array with a new to-do item, and I'm going to update the completed count, the incompleted count, and the total count on the to-do list, just add it to the end of the array and recompute every time you need that data off of the length of that array. You can think of this as like a fully normalized data model in your application. So if anyone here has worked with like a traditional SQL database, I don't know if this is the right crowd for people that have worked with traditional SQL databases. But you know that one of the things they tell you to do initially when you're learning is try to normalize the data as much as possible, so you have no repeated data in your application. The reason they suggest that you do that is because it's a lot easier to keep everything consistent and to reason about what your application is going to do. You start to move away from that and start denormalizing when you need that performance. When you want to shard to multiple databases, you start having redundant data everywhere. So by using extra mutable state, it's almost like a form of premature optimization. So instead, you should just be lazy and compute off of the fundamental source of truth in your application. And that source of truth should have one clear owner. So if you have a piece of mutable data, so let's say the to-do list again, all of the code that mutates that should live in one place. And it should be the gateway to this mutable state. So you can reason about exactly what's going to happen and how things are going to interact. And if you've ever worked with concurrency or watched someone work with concurrency and watched them kind of descend into madness, they'll talk about how bad concurrency is. It's actually not concurrency that is the real kind of mind bender. It's the fact that you have shared mutable state. And concurrency just amplifies the problem and makes it harder to reason about than a single-threaded program. But it's shared mutable state and not having a clear ownership of that data that makes it really hard to understand. Meteor gets this. Meteor is the single source of truth of the data in many of your applications, at least on the model level. And it's a reactive system. Whenever the data changes, rather than you caching that data all over your application, Meteor's auto-depth system basically just reruns your code, you recompute everything, and you're happy. React, which is the JavaScript library that I contribute to, also gets it. So I'm going to give you a high-level overview. And then I'll race through some code samples because I'm talking very slowly, I hope. We call it a library for creating user interfaces, but that's not very descriptive. We're not templating. We're not MVC. You can think of us like a declarative jQuery. So everyone out there who talks about React versus Angular and React versus Ember and React versus Meteor, it's not that. It's just a better way to manipulate the DOM and handle events. And the way that you do it, rather than imperatively touching the DOM, you write idempotent composable functions, which is a core tenet of maintainable software. And you have data come into your function, and you emit these virtual DOM representations as return values. And when the data changes, you just run that function again with the new data, and you re-render. And what React does is React diffs the previous result of that render with the new render, or the new virtual DOM, and does the minimal set of DOM operations required to apply those changes to the DOM. So you can think of it like rendering and re-rendering a virtual DOM, but it's actually a little more than that. And I'm not going to get too much into the sales pitch, but it's a view hierarchy. It's a language of higher level components and the abstractions that make sense for your application. And it's rendering to any sort of backend you want. So it's actually a DOM agnostic library. So right now we have backends for rendering to a browser DOM, rendering to a canvas, and rendering to a string. So you can actually run React on the server, render to an HTML string, not bother booting up an expensive DOM or using Phantom.js or something. And I'll show a demo of that in this talk. So let's use Meteor and React together. They seem like they're a pretty good fit for each other. So I'm going to build a basic tic-tac-toe game with Meteor, and I'm going to show you the code that I came up with. Now, I'm not the best Meteor programmer, so if I did something stupid, I'm sorry. So here is the first pass I took at the application. All right, we're on the client, and we create this board object that I just came up with. Whoop. So I wanted to write kind of the simplest data object to represent the game that I could come up with. And I'm going to kind of wave my hands over this, but we've got a collection that has my game, and it's got 3 pieces of data on it. It's got the name of the game, which you don't really care about. It's got the moves, which maps an x and y coordinate on the game board to whether x, o, or nobody owns that tile. And then it has the current person's turn on it. So we use our plain old Meteor API here, find one, to fetch that data. And we put some business logic on it. So we have a move method that checks if there's already somebody there, and if not, it writes it onto the game board. Bigger? How's that? All right. And we've got some other accessors. Do you buy that this is kind of just a very simple Meteor thing? All right, so we've got it in here. We can say move 0, 0, board.get 0, 0. We've got x there. And then if I try to move there again, it'll yell at me. Pretty straightforward, right? Cool. All right, so Meteor's awesome, by the way. It just reloads your stuff for you. I don't know if you guys know about this. It's great. So I've checked out step 2, which is where I actually build a user interface on top of this with React. Now, I want to stress that this is not a tutorial about why React is awesome, the best way to build applications with React. This is about why modeling your UI as pure functions is beneficial. So this is not the best practice in the way that most people write React apps, but I would love to talk to you about it afterwards if you're interested. But here is our function that renders the UI. It's a pure function. It takes in board, the game board instance that I just showed you, and it returns these, basically, these React.dom objects. Now, I know you can't quite fit the whole thing in there, but what we basically do, I'll walk you right through it. We iterate over every row and every column. We go into our board and we say, hey, board, give me what the value should be at this x and y, assign a certain CSS class to it, and then we append to this array with a div. Now I want to stress that these objects are not actual DOM nodes. They're descriptions of what we want the DOM to be. Because we can run this render method as much as we want, it's inexpensive, we diff the 2 representations, and then React takes care of all the DOM node creation and management for us. So blah, blah, blah. We push some stuff onto arrays, and we render a div. Let's look at the main app over here. Oh, actually, first of all, so this is our HTML file. All it is a script tag to React. There's nothing in there. I have another talk from JSConf where I talk about how evil templates are. I'll save you that for this talk. But here's the only change that I made to my application from before. All I did was say, hey, React, call this function with this model, render the component into the body. And then Meteor is like, yo, when the data changes, like, we'll just run this again. And React is like, great. When I get this new version of the virtual DOM, I'll diff it and make sure it's up to date. So here's the result. It's not a great game. But you can see I actually already made a change to Meteor from the command line previously. And oh, what is going on? Oh, yeah. But I can't click anything. Because all we're doing is rendering what's already in the database. So if I were to kind of do a move here, the red is X's, the blue is O's. It's easier to see on the screen. But it's brought up to date. And I didn't even think about it with React. React just did it for you. And I can actually prove to you that we aren't throwing out the DOM by saying something like this. Actually, let's. So I just did a manual change of the DOM there. And then if I move someplace else, it's still there. Even though React is managing the whole thing and you're conceptually re-rendering, it didn't mutate the DOM there. So that's pretty cool. We sold that like if we want to debug this, we just look at the inputs, and we look at the outputs, and then we trace through the flow of that function. Pretty straightforward, right? Cool. So let's look at step 3. I don't even remember what step 3 does. Actually, I do. I lied. OK. So our app is still the same. I just made some changes to the front end. Now, the key change I made is right here. I added a click handler to this, this virtual DOM component. Again, keep in mind that even though this looks like an inline handler, since it's not a real DOM node, we can use whatever implementation strategy we want to make it fast. So we actually only have a single click listener in the whole document and dispatch based on that. But all we're doing is saying, hey, when you click on this, trigger a move at this index, or this x and this y coordinate. And I added a button down here that will call that reset method that'll reset the game. But you can see, it just works. I didn't change how my Meteor code, I didn't do anything. I just added a single line of code. We're just conceptually re-rendering everything. Step 4. OK. So I might have another slide. Oh, yeah. So I had a slide about React and Meteor being pretty awesome. Then I had a slide about being crazy. Let's swap out the back end. So if you want to test this, personally, I'm not really super familiar with Meteor's testing strategies, but I just don't want to talk to the network. And I want a different backing store for the board that doesn't talk to Meteor. So I just threw out the old board. And now there's no Meteor code here. We're just using plain old JavaScript objects. And since before Meteor was handling the changes for us, I had this onChange handler, which basically says, hey, whenever you make a move or reset the game, just call whatever callback you provide here. The rest of the logic is the same. So we call that callback down here. And I've changed this a little bit. So you notice I don't use deps anymore because I'm not talking to Meteor at all. And instead, I'm just saying, hey, create a new board. And when that board changes, re-render. It's as simple as that. Now, the key takeaway here is not the few lines of code. It's the fact that when you have a virtual DOM diffing representation, you don't have to track your changes all throughout the application. So if you've used a traditional data binding system, a lot of times you'll have to explicitly provide computed properties. Or maybe the system underneath it does some sort of tracking for it. But it usually bleeds into your application. With this, you're just passing in regular JavaScript. You're not doing anything magical. Until now. So here's a problem, right? I've got this application, and it's pretty cool, and it's in Meteor, and it's live updating. And you know what I got to do? I got to reset it. All right. Come on. All right, so I got this application. works pretty well. Here's a problem. I want to be the next big startup, and this is all of the data that Google has to index me. And I'm going to get penalized if it has to run JavaScript. What if I could instead just create a static version of that page that looks exactly the same, but just doesn't have any interaction? And I will prove to you that this is static by viewing the source. And this has some React IDs in there that we actually are getting rid of in the next release. But this is static HTML. Because we're rendering to a virtual DOM, we don't have a dependency on the browser, so we can render to an HTML string. And in fact, though I couldn't figure out how to set it up in Meteor in time for this demo, if you were to run React on this markup, it would reuse it rather than re-rendering everything. So you get the benefits of SEO and that first fast page load experience, but you can still write your code just like you normally would. And so the code for this is still exactly the same for the React components. I didn't change anything. However, I was bugging a bunch of people on IRC. They told me about this router thing. And all I did was I said, hey, create the Meteor board like I always do. Call render component to string, the same, just like I call render component, and return the response. You might notice some weirdness with the async stuff here. That's because it's fake async. But that's kind of an implementation detail. It's going to be synchronous in the next version. And last, step 6. So the last one. I talked about the benefits of immutable data, right? We can use these benefits in an existing Meteor app because Meteor just gives us regular JavaScript objects, and I don't think it mutates them. So what I can actually do is I can play the game a little bit, and then I can do an instant replay. Pretty cool. You know how much code I had to do to write that? Not very much. Every time deps.autorun gets called, I just push the board onto this array, which is the log. And then I have a button down there that calls this replay function that just says, hey, go through the array, every second re-render it with the next item in the log. And I didn't even have to think about it. So this has a lot of really cool implications. Imagine being able to save a log of all the stuff that the user has done, zip it up, and send it to the server when they crash. You can replay exactly what happened for them to get into that state, and then realize that you had too much mutable state and get rid of it and make your app better. I'm sorry, I went way over time. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys for having me. Any questions? Yeah? How does React play with SVG? So we have an open source library called React Art that renders to a sequence of operations that we call art operations. Now we have to render graphics on Facebook for our Page Insights product. And they're kind of data visualizations of impressions and reach. You can go and see that at some point. But we need to support like old IE8. So we actually have the ability to render to this intermediate layer of art components. And those can then turn into either SVG, canvas operations, or VML, depending on which backend we want to render to based on the environment. Sweet. Yeah?
Do you have any comments on web components and how React might have to change or not once that sort of becomes mainstream, or do you think it will?
Well, the question was about React and its relationship with web components. I think that's a very broad and nuanced question to answer. But I can speak kind of at a high level that Facebook was not super involved with standardization efforts a year and a half ago. And since then, we've joined TC39. We're doing a lot more outreach to try to get a seat at the table and talk about how we could benefit each other with web components. What I will say is that web components is mostly focused on DOM, so new DOM APIs to make working with the DOM easier. We actually really don't like the DOM, and we put the DOM in its own little corner. So we're looking forward to taking advantage of Shadow DOM and being able to style native components. But we think that our approach to composition and flowing data between components, which I didn't really talk too much about, is superior to kind of traditional data binding approaches where you observe changes and trigger kind of imperatively updates. So we're hoping that we can kind of spread the gospel of immutability and lazy architectures.
I have a question from Twitter.
Cool.
What is your view on JavaScript front-end ecosystem in the next couple of years?
Well, it's an interesting time, for sure. It's great to see that there's like kind of this Cambrian explosion of environments and libraries and ways to use JavaScript. I'm really sold on NPM being the way that we're going to share components in the future, mainly because it does really fine-grained dependency tracking, and a lot of people have already agreed on it. So I'm really hoping that if we build new ways to share code in the future, we build it on top of NPM rather than go and reinvent the whole thing from scratch. I think that the fact that native applications have gained a lot of ground in the past couple of years is really important, has really serious implications for JavaScript, for the JavaScript community. And we really need to kind of take our performance and interaction standards to the next level, and if we want the people to use web apps. Does that answer the question?
I guess so.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, for what projects should we not use React? Like, what are some caveats that are going to be there, at least at this stage of the game?
Sure. The question was what is React bad at, and what are its caveats, and when shouldn't you use it for a project? So React uses composition and is very opinionated about composition. That naturally lends itself to hierarchies. So if your data model looks like a hierarchy, then React is a really good fit for it. However, if it really doesn't look like a hierarchy, then React probably isn't a great fit for your application. So if you're thinking about like a particle simulation or something, for example, where you've got a lot of flat kind of objects existing in space and they're all kind of colliding with each other and they could collide with anybody, or a game, certain types of games, React might not be great for that. Also, if you don't want to write JavaScript, React is probably not a good thing. Yeah?
In this demo, you used Meteor for your data and React for rendering. Let's say I didn't want to use Meteor. What are the best practices for using React?
Let's say you don't want to use Meteor. What are the best practices for using React? Was the question from a Meteor team member. So, we're still figuring those out. So the community and Instagram and Facebook all build applications in different ways because this is less of a full stack framework and much more of a declarative jQuery lower level type of thing. So the way that Facebook builds applications is we have a centralized queue of immutable messages, and we drop in those messages. And we say, an example of that type of message would be, user wants to like this photo. And then we have systems that listen on that. One of them is the photo service, you can think of it as. We call it a store. It picks up on that, and it tweaks the like button state in the UI by informing React, hey, this data had changed. We have another store which picks up on that message and sends the request to the server. Server comes back, and rather than directly updating that data itself, it drops into that queue again. So the store that actually renders the UI can say, oh, I went from a user saying he liked the photo to the server saying he disliked the photo. So this is probably an error condition, so show a little exclamation mark next to the like button for a server error or something like that. With Instagram, we just have two ways of fetching pages. We have the HTML way of fetching pages, and we have the JSON way of fetching pages. And when we do a page request and our client-side router kicks in, we just fetch the JSON version and then re-render our components with that data. So it really depends on your use case and that kind of thing. I know that the Clojure community is doing a lot of interesting stuff with how they manage data with core async. Sure.
What does it mean to render to the canvas? Can you do the whole DOM in the canvas, like an iframe almost?
The question was, what does it mean to render to the canvas? So we don't have like a HTML implementation for the canvas. What this means is that React is just a way to map a view hierarchy that you describe in like a functional way to any sort of backend that you want. So we have a plugin that drops in that says, hey, this is the plugin for the DOM. And it says, OK, the class name on this div changed from nothing to class A, and queue like a get or a set property or set attribute. So we've done that for the canvas as well, but it doesn't support the full dialect of HTML and CSS. It only supports this language for reactive data visualization called art. So if you want to draw like charts and bar graphs and stuff like that.
One last question.
Last question.
You had mentioned you don't see it as
The first thing that you do generally is you say, okay, oh, right, repeat the question. Thank you. The question is, where does this drop into a traditional MVC stack? Normally, you start out by saying, okay, I don't want to take a big risk on this technology. I'm going to try it out for one template or one partial or one tiny little piece of my view where everything else is managed by the controllers and models. What you'll find is that when you're developing an MVC application, it's usually like some pretty well-factored models over here, and then really tightly coupled views and really tightly coupled controller, and both are really monolithic. So your controller basically needs to know everything about the stack of views that you have. So with React, since you're building with components that are smarter than templates, you can start to move some of that controller logic that makes sense into your components. So a good example would be you want your model data, like the actual contents of the to-do list, to live in your models and have the controller just basically proxy that over to the view. But which tab you're on, whether it's the completed tab or the active tab, that's not really model logic, really, right? Like people call that view model, and then they kind of like splurge it all together into like one big ball of mud and pass it over to the views. With React, you would say, oh, the tab switcher component owns that mutable state. So now you can test that. You can refactor your code to more elegantly express kind of the way that your application works. Does that make sense? OK.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up we will have lightning talks, so we'll be back in exactly 1 minute.
So if I could please have Shashko, Slava, and the Percolate Studio guys backstage. I have chairs set up for you back here, and that way you'll be ready to go as soon as your turn is up.
Hi, everyone. Please take a seat. We have some seating available up in front, so if you're in the back and you're, standing room, you can feel free to grab some chairs that have been vacated. And folks who are in the hallway, feel free. Our first lightning talk tonight is Alice. This is Alice's first lightning talk.
Aw, shucks. Woo! All right, so I'll just get started?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm Alice Yu. I'm one of the community managers here at Meteor. So I feel like Meteor is new enough that a lot of people will associate it with frontier people who run on the bleeding edge of technology. And that's really great. We definitely have crazy frontier folks in the room tonight. But Meteor is also really well suited for beginners, people who are learning to build their first web app. And I actually, I wrote a blog post about this, which you can read at your leisure. But rather than reiterate the points that I made in this post, I'm going to quickly fly through the timeline of what it looked like when I built my first web app using Meteor. So I made this during App Week. Feel free to visit this site and play around with it, mess it up. It's a virtual Rubik's Cube, and it acts exactly like a real Rubik's Cube would, though obviously the UI is rather different. And so I came up with the idea late Wednesday night, and I started working on it the next day on my way to work. This was basically just me sketching out the model of how the app logic would work. And then after lunch, I grabbed my coworker, David Greenspan, because I don't technically know JavaScript, actually. So David helped set up some scaffolding for me, told me which bits of syntax to put in which files, and then I was able to continue on my own from there and fill in the actual app logic. So by 4:30, I'd finished drawing the cube in HTML. It's literally just a table where each cell of the table corresponds to one of the squares on the cube. And by 5:30, I'd set up some dummy buttons, which you can click them, but they don't actually do anything. And then by 8:30, I got the first 2 buttons working. And this was super exciting for me, because basically you could do like this, but nothing else. But I knew that once I could do that, that all the other buttons would be easy. And I felt really confident that I'd have a finished app to demonstrate the next day. So I was super pumped at this point. So by 11:30, I'd finished the rest of the standard buttons. And I was actually kind of done at this point. And this was the MVP that I had planned to build. And it took less than 12 hours, and actually quite a bit less than that if you consider I took my sweet time with lunch and dinner and picking exactly the right shade of white for my cube. So I honestly hadn't expected to be finished this early. Luckily, I had, earlier that day, I'd written out some nice-to-haves, so I just kept going. And so I implemented slice moves. I implemented rotations, and I implemented keyboard shortcuts. So for some reason, I thought this would be some really involved project that I'd have to learn how to make this work, but it turned out to be 30 seconds of Googling and then a bunch of copy-paste, so that was really easy. And then finally, my finishing touch, I added a cheat button, so you can hit one button, have it reset to its default state. And yeah, you'll notice at this point I'd actually reached the bottom of my nice-to-haves. I had a bunch of kind of deeper level restructuring ideas I might have, but in terms of what I was going to demo, I was kind of out of stuff, so I went to bed. Seemed like the thing to do. Yeah, so the moral of the story is go build things. You don't necessarily have to studiously, like a good student, go through the prerequisites. Meteor is designed so that you can just get started right away and have something live that you can show people, and then you can sort of learn and deepen your technical knowledge as you need it. So yeah, that's my talk, and any questions? Questions? So the thing is, okay, so yeah, I mentioned that in one of the things. It turns out originally I thought I would do a 3D model, but most 3D cubes are actually super frustrating to use because if you go to it and it looks really cool and you can drag it, but if you're just doing it randomly, it looks cool, but if you're actually doing it intentionally and trying to do specific moves, it never seems to do what I planned for it to do. And I'm pretty sure all the cubes out there, they use the same engine because they all behave in the same way. But I don't know. Maybe I might use Shashka's thing and turn it into a 3D model at some point, and that would be fun.
I have a question.
Sure.
Where do we find your Rubik's Cube solving course?
Oh, Jade is almost as though I planted her. So this is, I didn't, for the record, but so rubietysociety.com is sort of my little hobby thing. where it's I have like lessons for how to solve a Rubik's Cube. Yeah. All right, any other questions? Thank you. All right, next up we have Sashko. Sashko is our newest Meteor core dev, and Alice had alluded somewhat to what he's about to show you. So as much of a trailer as that's going to be, without further ado, Sashko.
Yay. Let's see if I can get this to show up. I don't know how to use Macs, but now I have one, so. Oh, what? Where'd my layer go? Oh, man, I made this sweet. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay, so you guys might not know yet, but what used to be called Meteor UI is now going to be called Blaze. And so one of the things I thought would be really cool is if you could put the word 3D after it, and then it would sound like one of those B movies, like Sharks 3D or something like that. And then I was like, man, I should go and build like a reactive 3D library that'll let you like use Blaze to render 3D. And I was getting all excited to build it, but then I realized it actually already existed. There's this thing called X3 DOM, which lets you use DOM elements to make 3D scenes. So first I'll show you like the simple version of the demo. This is kind of like Minecraft. So you have your 3D scene. You can take different colors of blocks and you can add them to the scene and you can build stuff. And this is surprisingly easy to build right now. So here is the code to that simple version. You have this X3D element, which is supported by including this library in your page. Is it, what? Is it not big enough? Okay, I can make it bigger. Okay, you have this X3D element, which is your 3D scene. You do some stuff like setting lights and make the ground of your scene. And then you just do each box, draw a box. And it's that simple. All you have to do then is set up a mouse listener that on mouse down calculates where the next box should go and then inserts a box. And you have this. And you're basically done. And after that, I was like, man, this was so easy, I should go and add a bunch of other stuff. And I made this website that is now at 3d.meteor.com, which you guys should go check out and tweet about because it's totally awesome. And you can make any 3D model you want. There's a lot more features now than just that simple version. But like the source code is a little bit needlessly complicated. So you can make any 3D model, and then you can clone any of the ones that you see, and then edit them and publish your own. So as soon as this, it's there. There we go. Okay. I don't know, maybe everyone just went to it or something. But yeah. And with Meteor method stubs, it's super fast to add a block, even if it's not fast to load all of them at once. And it only adds the one block that you added because of Blaze's super sweet, like only re-rendering the part of the page that changes features. So it's totally awesome. Any questions?
What happens if you bring up two windows? Can you?
Oh, yeah. Right. So the important part about this is like any good Meteor project, it's collaborative. So if you take this and you go to the same page, like the same link, you add stuff here, and it adds on the other one. So if you want to collaborate on your project with multiple people, you just send them the link, and then until you publish it, anyone who has the link can edit it. And then once you've published it, it's frozen, and you have to make a new copy to edit the same model. Any other questions? Oh.
Sorry, is Blaze the library?
Yes. So okay. So there's if you go to GitHub, there's a little bit more of an explanation. But basically, X3 DOM is the library. I don't know if you can see the name. Is the library that uses DOM elements to render 3D, and Blaze is the new name for Meteor UI, aka the Meteor templating system, which fits way better with Blaze 3D than like Meteor UI 3D. So it's good. Shark 3D would have been also awesome, but unfortunately, I think calling it Shark is too dangerous sounding, unlike Blaze, obviously. So
Blaze is also a successor to Spark. Get it?
that's true. All right, any other questions? Is that good? Cool, thanks.
All right, next up we have Zoltan Ola and Dominic Nguyen from Percolate Studios.
Thanks. Nguyen? That's the
And they are going to tell you.
it's like a little, yeah. It's too hard to pronounce right now. Ask me after. So hi, we're Percolate Studio. This is Zoltan Ola, and I'm Dominic. And we're here today to give you a preview of Atmosphere, the new Atmosphere. We've been working really hard on it, and we're really quite excited to give you a preview today.
So there are these so we've been taking advice from the community. We've been working internally to try and figure out like how can we make the best package management system out there. And we've come up with these 3 tenets of discoverability, reliability, and trust. So these are essentials, essential metrics for our system to bubble up to you guys, to the users, to figure out what packages are important and worth checking out.
And so they all factor into what we're developing called the Atmosphere rating. And discovery, reliability, and trust, those are really like esoteric kind of concepts. What they really boil down to is like installs over time, GitHub rating, GitHub stars, GitHub issues. We're all factoring this into an Atmosphere rating to really help you get an idea immediately what packages are worth integrating into your app. And worth is perhaps not the right word, but really like we don't want people to spend too much time integrating an app that's deprecated or not being used anymore.
So yeah, here we've got the homepage, and as you can see, one of the things that where the Atmosphere rating really makes itself known is like trending packages. So that's showing you based on the Atmosphere rating what's cool, what's coming up.
So instead of a reverse chronological list, we're giving you a list that takes into account the activity within the community and the ecosystem to hopefully help you find the packages that you want easier and faster.
So we've got top searches as well, so you can see what other people are searching for in real time, I guess.
This is a preview of the package page. So above me, you'll see a graph of the Atmosphere rating, the multicolored rainbow thing up there. We also give you an idea of the top contributors on packages and how this like complex web of people within the community all relate to each other, hopefully. In addition to that, we give you 30 seconds, an idea of the history. So not only how this package is updated over time, but also kind of the milestones for a package. So when you hit 10K downloads, when you hit a top 10 on Atmosphere, we want to provide those milestones to you as well.
So these are, if you go back a slide just really quickly, how do you go to the bottom? Some other conceptual stuff that may be coming in the future is the ability to comment and also see what apps use packages. So we'll talk about that in a second too.
We're also focused on the discovery aspect of finding packages that you really want. Right now, the only way you can search Atmosphere is if you have like a keyword, and you have to have an idea of like what exactly you want. So I find myself going to Stack Overflow, going to other like sites, forums, to figure out what I actually need. We want to give you an idea a bunch of packages that are all related to each other. So in this case, a category page for user interface packages. One of them is Iron Router.
So say you're searching for a router, you're new to the ecosystem, and you don't know which router to use. Well, hopefully something like Iron Router will bubble straight up to the top as the routing package that most people are using.
Apparently, we don't have very much time left. So we're going to give you the bullet points. A quick idea that we're conceptualizing right now is the idea of apps. So being able to see what packages that your real production apps use. I think that's, we both think it's really valuable as an indicator of like how the quality of the apps. That's still in the concept phase. Let us know on Twitter if you really want that.
Idea.
Yeah. Finally, we really need help testing. We're working on it right now. If you go to atmospherejs.com and sign up to become for our private beta, we'd really, really appreciate that. Go to atmosphere.com, please. And follow us at Percolate Studio. That's all.
Questions?
Obvious question. What's the relationship with the basic atmosphere and with Todd Coleman, other people who work on it?
Yeah, so Tom Coleman's actually a member of our studio as well. So yeah, we're working on the next release of Atmosphere internally, and in the future we see it being an open source project.
The question was, what is the relationship between the new Atmosphere and Tom Coleman?
Yeah, Tom Coleman is one of the partners
Yes.
in the studio. So we talked to him earlier today about it.
Other questions?
How do you age out packages?
How do we?
So they were really, really popular, but now they've kind of fallen by the wayside, so that new stuff can keep on percolating out.
Yeah, so the question is, how do you age out packages? And that's basically taking these metrics that we have access to, like package downloads and also like statistics from GitHub, and applying some hopefully intelligent algorithms that I'm sure will need tweaking to sort of set like decay functions and things like that on the incoming data.
And that will be completely open source, so you guys can feel free to try to hack it.
See how it works.
Is there a way to are you going to have a way so that if we say, oh, we don't want that package internally, we can remove those, have an account and remove those certain packages from our searches, if you will?
That's not planned yet, but we're totally welcome.
The ability to remove packages from your view, so essentially like what Google might do in Google search and customizing the search. So that was the question. So yeah, we don't have that on our roadmap yet, but maybe in the future.
A question from Twitter.
Yes.
There's a sign-in button on there. What does signing into Atmosphere get you?
So these are mock-ups at the moment, and the Meteor team is busy creating the backend, so the command line tool and the actual repository that holds the packages. So the question was, what does the sign-in button in the mock-ups do? And I think most likely it will allow you to sign in with Meteor's OAuth server and accounts system that they use.
And power comments, if we do include comments, probably give you a list of a visualized list of all the packages that you're using across different apps, and hopefully in the future some more analytics type of stuff that we can provide with Atmosphere.
One last question.
Do you plan to integrate with NPM? For instance, if I search for Cheerio Atmosphere, nothing is going to tell me that I should just go use Cheerio and Meteor-NPM. Instead, I will find some old Cheerio wrapper packages. So the question is, how do you integrate with the larger NPM ecosystem?
So the question is, how do we integrate with a larger NPM package system? I'm not really sure how I can answer that question in a nutshell, apart from what is going to be baked into Meteor's next generation of package infrastructure. So hopefully the Atmosphere rating is good enough that it will bubble when there are many small wrapper packages that don't get maintained or used anymore. They should hopefully drop off the radar. And if there is a de facto wrapper package, for instance, Bootstrap or whatever, then hopefully you'll just see which one you should be using straight away in the interface. That's the best answer I can give you right now. Yeah, talk to me later.
And, all right.
Cool. Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, go. Our next speaker is Slava Kim. Slava is a Meteor core dev, and this is his first lightning talk.
Hi, my name is Slava, and today I'm going to talk about Meteor and your text editor where you write code. So raise your hand if you use one of those, Emacs, Vim, or Sublime. Wow, I think it's like the whole room. So this talk is going to be helpful to you, I hope. So my first question is why you don't use Vim. I think Vim is the best editor. I know like the whole MDG actually uses Emacs, but I'm hardcore like Vim only user. So there are actually some good reasons not to use Vim for web dev. And some of them are like the tool is not just good enough for JavaScript. And you don't get autocompletion, like jump to definition, all the good stuff that you are used to in like Java world or even Python. I don't know, even Python works well. Actually, you know, these editors are very cool. They're not even editors, they're called IDEs, like Xcode for Objective-C, Eclipse for Java, Visual Studio for C#. They're great. And companies are investing a lot of money into it. And that's why these tools are so great. But, you know, like Vim is not that bad, actually. There are plenty of plugins. Those bring you cool features for C++ or C# or Python. So it's not really a problem of editor. Editors are capable of doing that. So I thought there should be a project for JavaScript that does that, that brings all this static analysis to your code. And actually there is one. It's called Turn.js. It's written by the author of Acorn and CodeMirror. They're very cool projects. And actually they already support Node.js, Angular, jQuery _ and they didn't support Meteor for some reason. And I thought it's a problem. So I took one weekend off. I've seen this super cool mailing thread telling us like, OK, I found this thing called Turn.js. I think it's really cool. We should use it. And I thought, yeah, we should use it. And I hacked in one weekend. And that's what I have. You have smart completion based on your syntax. For example, it knows, I don't know, is it small? Like it knows that it's your collection. And it shows you what are the methods on your collections. You can jump to definition. I can go to some call to my collection and then jump to the code part where this collection is actually defined. I can get references. Like find me all the places where I use this collection. And it doesn't just do simple search. It actually does analysis on syntax tree to understand what actually happens. You can get docs. That's, I think, very important to have docs when you have a large code base. Not only docs for Meteor, but also docs for your internal code base. Type inference. So it's probably hard to see, but on the bottom there is a line changing. Every time I go to a different symbol, it shows me what type is it. Is it an object? Is it a collection? Is it like a computation? And that's what works. And I think it's really cool. So we have basic features of Turn.js. You have auto-completion. You have file scoping for Meteor. It means like if you declare something in one file, it will not be visible in the second file unless it's global, and it works. And also, we have a lot of definitions for Meteor, and I took it from type definitions for TypeScript. They're actually useful, very useful, thanks to all these people who did that. And we could utilize it in this project for JavaScript. What doesn't work? Renaming, refactoring don't actually work. Docs from docs.meteor.com don't actually work. Packaging scoping doesn't work quite yet. I'm planning to spend another weekend working on that. And it would be nice if we could generate all these definitions for Meteor for every new version of Meteor in the future. So I'm not going to do it manually, you know. So this is a link on GitHub. It's called Turn Meteor. It's just a plugin for Meteor system, Turn system. And it actually works for all these three editors, Emacs, Vim, and Sublime Text. I also have instructions and video screencasts how to install them. People report that they actually work. Yeah, so what's next? I want to work on those features, those don't work. I'm encouraging people who want to join me to contribute. So for example, you don't actually need to know how to hack on, I don't know, like manipulate ASTs and stuff like that. What you can do, you can write definitions for your favorite packages. I just talked to Bo from Evented Mind, and he said like he's going to hack on it and bring definitions for Island Auto, for example. And you can do it for your favorite packages as well, like Meteor Collection 2 or like forms and stuff like that. So that's it. Please use it. Yeah.
Questions?
Oh, good. Yeah.
Can you make a nice syntax highlighter for space bars?
Can I make a nice syntax highlighter for spacebars? I'm not actually that good in Vim script yet. So I was hoping someone will build it. So right now I just use just HTML, like syntax highlighter, I don't know. And you know, I think we are not using handlebars anymore, we're using spacebars, right? So maybe it will change, so it's not clear yet. Anything related to actual completion stuff? I can show you GIFs again, like they actually work. So you jump to reference, you know? Okay. Okay.
Quick question about spacebars. What is it?
What is spacebars? So I don't think I'm super qualified to answer this question, but I think spacebars is actually something you used to call handlebars for Meteor. Actually, it's not handlebars anymore. It's been like, I don't know, more than years that it's not handlebars. It's a fork of handlebars, and now it's a completely right of handlebars in Meteor. So yeah, I think it's going to change somehow. I'm not sure. So, yeah. No questions? Thank you. Use
Thank
it,
you.
please.
All right, folks, we're going to take 1 minute, and so feel free to go to the bathroom, except for those of you who have yet to speak. The remaining speakers, please come up here.
You might not have time to go to the bathroom. We'll be starting again very soon. But if I could have the remaining lightning talk speakers please come backstage and find a seat backstage, then I will get you mic'd up and ready to go. All right? And if you have already spoken, please find a seat elsewhere.
I sent you a GitHub comment on GitHub 1.0 on you know, on the render one. Render.
So we have a community members one.
Okay.
So it's not the one in my Steven Collins, I think he's working on it. What's the issue?
Oh, nothing. Actually, I commented like 2 months ago I was going to start working on it, and then I got buried in the
Oh, really?
Yeah. Also, with React, do you have any like example or anything for larger applications and apps? Like, I mean, I conceptually get it. It's just one of those things like, I mean, I get how like you're sort of, I mean, I get the modules, you know, and then you know how you could compose it.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if you have any examples of anything that you can share.
This is our biggest weakness right now. The biggest one that's probably open source. Well, all of Khan Academy is open source. Okay. And Khan Academy is a very big application, but it's one that also has a lot of legacy constraints, so like it might not be the way that you start out. This guy, Jared Forsyth, built a GitHub issues viewer that's like fairly complete and has routing. No, there's another one. That's React. But yeah, this is our biggest week right now. I will tell you that Instagram is going to be open sourcing, probably not like maintaining, but probably like blog posts describing our architecture with code attached, probably in the next month or two. So that's going to be at least like a sketch of like, here's how all of our apps and components are together, here's how our build system works.
And you mentioned you're using like traditional JSON APIs, data service, right? As opposed to like a physical data store.
Right, yeah. Lots of that.
talks are going to recommence. So please take a seat. Anyone who's standing up, we have extra seats scattered about the room. So, so yeah, feel free to, please come forward if you're standing in the back. Yeah, so our next speakers are Task Putty. So Graham and Andries are here from South Africa, and they are going to tell you about their production app.
Right, thanks, Jade. Like you said, we are Task Putty, and it's a visual platform for building Meteor apps.
Right, the first thing we'd like to show you guys is a drag and drop form designer, because we know how you love spending a lot of time to get the layout on your form just perfect. No, actually you don't. You just really want a set of pre-developed, ready-to-use components. You don't want to spend a lot of time developing these things from scratch. So we've gone and put quite an extensive set of really useful standard components together. Things like data tables as fields. You can also do quite advanced layout. You can have table layouts, and you can even nest table layouts, etc. Do really advanced things on layout stuff, and then you can use these forms wherever in your app.
Okay, so a lot of business apps have processes. So this is our visual process designer. Very easy to add and modify processes. So there I'm adding a new step. And there you can see I'm just joining it to an existing step. Of course, you can bind your JavaScript event handlers to anything in this process. And then your users can very easily create new records. Let's call this one Graham. And you'll see there's a form that we created previously that pops up. And it's very easy then for your users to move items in a lovely visual drag and drop way between steps, fully multi-user.
Right. Yeah, of course you can tie all your own code and JavaScript methods to various triggers in the process, and this allows you to change the business logic without having to change any code. Then also we give you another facility with which to interact with your business logic. We've got a very visual drag and drop sort of if-then rule editor. So if you want, for example, a condition where if some item has been in some step of a process, maybe for a certain amount of time without having been touched, maybe you want to send an email on that event to a manager to escalate it, for example, that's how you would do that. And you can put huge rule sets together and tie a custom piece of JavaScript code fragments to your actions.
Right, so if you have tabular data in your application, we've got this great data table component with a rich field editor here. You can see I'm choosing a person over here. You can also, any item that you have that has a date associated with it, you can put it onto a calendar, fully drag and drop to change that date. And you'll see there's a picture of a user over there, so you can really display your data any way that you want.
Right, and then of course, a commonly used pattern is you might want to have your security defined with users and roles, and you might not want to do a lot of work to get that into your app. So we give you a very nice centralized console, which if you use role-based security, you can basically just use this component as is in your app.
Right, so build slick apps and get even more productive with your Meteor development. Go to taskputty.com and get yourself on the waiting list. Thank you. Thank you.
Sounds like a TV commercial. I got a question. Like you think?
Yeah.
Your service, how much does it cost?
Oh, that's a very good question.
The question was, how much does the service cost?
Right. In terms of pricing, we haven't finalized our pricing. We want to, in the beginning, throw it open to developers as much as possible. Probably we foresee a situation where we'll most likely make money from the number of users that actually come to the resulting infrastructure, so not so much from the developers. We want to really make it as accessible as possible to developers.
It's a platform as a service.
I like it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do you have a launch date in mind?
The Steve Jobs answer.
Yeah.
When it's ready.
Yeah. When will it be ready? It will be ready when it's ready. As you guys can see, we actually really have a strong beta. We've been cooking it up for a long time, but you know, Meteor itself hasn't had its 1.0 release, and we heavily built on top of Meteor. So I think when Meteor has had a 1.0 release, will be quite soon after that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, and to answer Mike Lazarsi's question on Twitter, you get Meteor stickers by organizing a Meteor meetup group in your city. All right, our next speakers are, our next speaker is Gerard, and he's from, Gerard from Differential, and and he's going to tell you how to create a Meteor blog in 30 seconds.
It's already created. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. Okay, well, you want to start?
Yep.
Okay, our clock started already. That was kind of hard to follow, but that's all right. I'm Gerard. This is Greg. We're both from Differential in Cincinnati, Ohio. At Differential, we do a lot of client work in Meteor, almost exclusively Meteor. And we recommend our clients that they all have blogs because blogs are good for SEO. And I believe anyway that everyone should write more. And the better you write, the better person you are. So we first started out with our client products. We went and looked into Meteor and looked for a Meteor blog package, a Meteor blog app, I should say. And there were a few out there. Some of them were very good. The problem is you needed a whole Meteor app to run this blog, so you need a whole nother dyno on Heroku or a servo or what have you. And we said to ourselves, we should be able to just write a blog package that you can embed into your app so you get one dyno, one app, and a blog. And that's how we got the idea for blog. It's great. The Meteor packaging system is unlike others that I've used before, whether it be gems, NPM modules. Rails has this thing called engines, which is kind of iffy. In Meteor, it was surprisingly simple to create a blog. So we were going to walk through creating an app and adding the packages, but earlier today, it just seemed to take too long. It took like over 3 minutes to add everything. Maybe that means we have too many dependencies. I'm not sure. So believe me when I say all we've done is run Meteor create app, MRT add blog. We've also added accounts UI, accounts password, and then just for fun, we added Bootstrap. And this is yeah, Bootstrap 3. Is that yours? No, okay. So this is the blog. Wait, go back. It's all right, we got time. So go back to the window. When you first come up, bring the site up, you can go to /blog, and lo and behold, you'll see the default message. If you try to add a blog by going to /admin/blog, it'll actually kick you back because you're not logged in. So if you didn't see it, we got redirected. So Greg's going to add login buttons through Accounts UI and create a user right now. And here we go. So now he's created a user and we've logged in. Now we can go to /admin/blog. And let's create a blog, Greg. All right. It brings up our blog, a new blog page. We have, I won't go into the joke. There's a markdown editor with preview. Go ahead and publish it and show it. That's basically it. So just by adding a package, you get somewhat full-featured blog. It's got support for roles, pagination. We're working on things like images and comments. At Meteor, at Differential, we do these kinds of things a lot. So we've created a tool belt of sorts. We have a comments package. We have a CMS package. I just uploaded like a static pages package today, this afternoon. Check it out on Atmosphere. Oh, there it is. It's got support for, it adds the Facebook Open Graph tags and your Twitter card tags to your blog page. It's all out of the box. So our time's up. Let me click on that. Yeah, blow it up. There we go. Okay. Any questions? Yep.
What's the name of the GitHub account?
It's @bdiffer. Oh, sorry. The question was, what is our GitHub account? It's @bdifferential, so github.com/@bdifferential. Yeah, you'll find there's a lot of packages. Some of them are better than others. It's all we'll do in our spare time. Yeah.
If you want your clients to use it, you might consider putting in a WYSIWYG editor. There are lots of good ones.
Yeah,
they run fine.
Yeah, I started out that way. I found that like WYSIWYG editors tend to get in the way. The best thing about them is image upload. That tends to get in the way. And even with just a little convincing, our clients agree that they only need bold, italic, lists, things that Markdown is great for. So they don't need the Cadillac. Yeah, go ahead.
What do you do for routing?
Yeah, so the question was what we do for routing. I missed your question, which was he asked why don't we use a WYSIWYG editor, and I answered that. This question is routing. So there's an iron router dependency. That's all. Yeah. Anything else? Thanks.
All right. Our next speaker is Akbar Ahmed from Exponential, and he's going to tell you about faster Meteor development with automation.
Sorry. Is that right? Yeah, there we go. Oh, too far. Okay. Cool. So basically what Exponential is the current company that I'm working on. It's tooling as a service. And easy way of explaining it. Okay, come on. There we go. Basically what tooling is if you're not familiar with it, it's all the things that helps make developers a lot faster. So if you look at the large companies like Google and LinkedIn, all of them, they have large tooling teams, and that effectively makes development go a lot faster. And what that is, if you look at it in an overly simplified way, is everything from project setup, how do I structure my directories, to scaffolding, where do I put my files, and then more importantly, the more advanced stuff is like automated coding and testing. And this doesn't take away from you as a developer. What it does is it amplifies what you do. There we go. The reason why tooling matters is every single person in the room has too much work. I doubt there's anybody in here that sits there and you end up finishing coding on Wednesday and you're like, I ran out of stuff to do. And it's just so basically what tooling does is help you work through this eternal backlog that you have. There we go. And effectively what tooling is, to make it very simple, and I'll show you in a demo in a second, is you take this very small little bit of JavaScript, which is the spec file you see on the left, and what you can do is you can actually expand that and blow that out to a huge amount of code. And that's so it's like things like Meteor. So you can take this small spec file, let it create your publication, your subscription, and your methods in the middle. It'll set up your methods correctly, things like validation, security, and it helps basically scaffold out a lot of the code that you have to create anyway. And importantly, you can actually use the same spec file to also create a RESTful API. You can create an Angular app if you want a more traditional type of application for single-page app, if that's traditional. And then you can also do like server-side rendering if you need to worry about things like SEO. And so it can give you SEO for free with pretty much anything you create. So now, demo. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through this. It's basically a video, but it'll play well enough. Okay, so what you're seeing here is basically we're running the exponential command. This first one creates the project. It's going to set up your Meteor directory structure. So if you start getting into like larger Meteor apps, you're going to have a lot of directories for both client and for the server. After you do that, you're going to want to update a lot of packages. So getting rid of things like auto-publish, having more secure packages in place, things like passwords, et cetera. And then if this goes away, it sets up your boilerplate, so some of the common basic files you need to always do. And then lastly, you're going to see here is a command to actually generate an entire module. And this is going to be where you see it actually spit out a lot of code. Yeah. There you go. Okay. So I'm going to pause it here. That's the end of the time. But you can see basically what's happening is it's generating out a lot of code for a lot of your application. And questions?
Is this name of your website again?
It's exponential.io.
Is there an install script for the command line tool?
Yeah, it's actually just npm install. Yeah, so we haven't released yet. We're actually taking beta signups right now. And we'll be releasing in Feb. So you can actually reach us any of these ways.
Any other questions?
Any particular boilerplate you're based on, like differentials or multi-event or?
We had actually published an earlier, is there any particular boilerplate? There's a directory structure that we had published a while back, about 4 or 5 months ago, and so we actually follow that. Everything's kind of a variation. So if you look at all the boilerplates, they're all almost the same. Ours is just another variation on it.
Thank you.
Cool.
Our next speaker is Chris Hammoud. He is the founder of PayTags, and he's going to be telling you about selling things faster with Meteor and Instagram. Chris.
Hey everybody, my name is Chris, and I founded PayTags. Basically, Meteor made web development easier. I think that it should make the internet easier, including e-commerce. So I created PayTags. It's the fastest and easiest way to sell anything online. So basically, I'll just give you a quick demo. I hope it works. So I'll take a picture of you guys, and then we'll say hashtag for sale, and then we'll say $50. And if we're lucky, which we are, it pops up right there, and now we can buy it. So we click buy. Then we enter our shipping information, we complete this, and hooray, we just did it. Now, that would be cool, but we go even further, and then we end up with shipping information, which comes in an email later. So the person selling it, which is me, gets this email, which comes with a shipping label. And I can print this, and then I can ship everything. So basically, I just streamlined the whole process of selling anything online. I launched in late December, and since then, I've had around $25,000 in volume. And I'm currently in the middle of raising $750,000. I'm way short of time, so if anyone has any questions, I would love to answer. Yeah.
Are you aware of Dwala, and have you considered integrating Dwala into the
I have. The question is, have I heard of Dwala, and have I thought of integrating with them? The answer, yes, I know of them. No, I haven't thought of integrating with them. I don't know. It's good enough as it is right now, and I'm more focused on like fundraising at the moment. So, yeah.
How do you compete with eBay in terms of getting traction?
Well, it's actually really funny. There's currently 2.2 million things listed on Instagram for sale right now, and I've been working with like a lot of stay-at-home moms, and they're selling like all the closet clothing that they have, and yeah, it's pretty interesting. So I guess the question was, how do I compete with eBay and Etsy and all the other big players? Well, apparently they aren't doing something right. Otherwise, there wouldn't be 2.2 million things listed on Instagram right now. And I guess that's where I'm going to come in, hopefully. And by starting in a niche market such as closet clothing that they're trying to get rid of. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I didn't catch the name of your service.
It's called PayTags right now.
How much does it cost to join it, or is it free?
It's free to sign up, free to post things. We take 2.9% plus 30 cents on the charge, and then we take another 3.5% on the sale.
How many users do you have right now?
We have 500 sellers, around 1,000 daily hits. Yeah.
One last question.
Where are you hosting?
I'm hosting on Modulus. Super easy to set up. It's great.
The price was 55, even though you said it was 50. Was that?
Oh, so yeah, there's a markup on every object. I'm sorry. I should have clarified that.
How long have you been in business?
I launched unofficially like Christmas, so December 25th, and I started getting my first users on January 1st or 2nd.
This is all in Meteor?
Yeah, so everything's written in Meteor.
And where are you based?
Right now I'm based in San Mateo. I'm hoping to move up to San Francisco. And currently it's just me, so if anyone's a designer, as you can tell, I'm like really bad. So.
Did I see your front page?
Yeah, it's awful. I will be. I could contract. Any last questions? I think I'm out of time.
Yep. Thank you. And we have one surprise talk. Is it a surprise if I tell them? So Avi is a core dev, and he will be telling you about building visualizations with Meteor's native SVG support.
Hey. Thank you for coming. Sorry. Thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Avi Tal. People call me Avi. Yes. So people asked what Spacebars is when Slava gave a talk. So Spacebars is, we've rewritten basically the handlebar spec into our own parser that knows how to turn this template here. Is this big enough? Let's make it a bit bigger. So we parse these templates into a intermediate form that's not different than React's, which you saw some examples of that. But that's all underneath the hood. You don't see that happening. But what we gain by doing that is we can render different components or different HTML tags in different ways. So we can render SVG natively just the way you'd write your app. So you write SVG, you write the SVG tags, you put handlebars, helpers, or each or if directives wherever you want. And underneath the hood, we know that, for example, when you want to create an SVG element, you can't use create element. You have to use create element NS, and there's a few other differences. And we take care of all of that underneath the hood. So basically, building a clock like this is very simple. You don't need to use anything like D3. SVG is a fairly simple language. Writing paths is a little bit more complicated, and we could imagine building a layer on top of that. So I just want to kind of quickly just show this app. We just have an SVG tag opening it. We have circle, which is one of the SVG tags, and you just specify its radius and center. And then here we go over all of these hour marks, like these, and using just a regular handlebars each directive, going over each one of them and rendering the appropriate line directive. And then for the hands, we have this hand data helper. And all we do is render these different lines for the 3 different hands, second, minute, and hour. And just to look at one of the bits of JavaScript, we have this radial helper here, and that's defined in our JavaScript file. And you can see it's very simple. All it does is compute X and Y coordinates. There's a little bit of math here. We can also imagine making helpers that don't require you to know trigonometry if you don't want to, but right now you have to use math. But point being, SVG is a fairly simple language. People developed all these libraries on top of SVG to make it easier to use, but actually you don't really need to use those. It's sometimes harder to learn those, like D3, than just use SVG directly. So with Meteor templates, you can just use SVG directly. It's not hard to learn. It just works out of the box the way you'd expect it. And basically, it makes building things like this really easy. So that's all I got. I just want to say one more thing. This is part of what we used to call the Shark branch that now we're rebranding as Blaze. We're in the actual final steps of getting it prepared to merge to Devel. So this demo does not work on the previous version of Meteor. And if you want to try this out, you can look at the Shark branch. And there's under examples clock, you'll find this demo. And I also have to say this demo was built by David Greenspan, who's not present now, because he has a 2-week-old boy at home. So congratulations to him. And thank you for the demo. Questions? Yes?
You mentioned React.
Yeah.
Does the rewrite of handlebars do anything like React and like optimizing rendering, not wasting time like reflowing the DOM?
Yeah, the question is, does the rewrite of handlebars, what we call it Blaze now, does that implement the same kind of performance as React with minimum updates to the DOM and not causing reflows? The runtime behavior of Blaze with regard to DOM operations is more or less the same as React. The rendering models are slightly different. With React, they re-render components and then do this diffing process. Whereas with Meteor, we track dependencies as we're rendering, so that when something changes, we only update the things that need to be changed. So the eventual DOM operations end up being the same. Is that an answer? Like the same amount of reflows should happen regardless of whether you were to write this in React or Blaze. Yes?
So when do you think you're going to put it into main or release?
Very soon. when will it get into a new release? Yeah, we're basically at this point, we have it all working. People are actually using it. Like there are actual apps deployed on this branch. It does work. We're clearing a few final things. There's like a known memory leak in our build plugin, which means when the app restarts 59 times, you have to run Meteor again, and there's a few more small details like that, but it all works. People have apps on top of it, and it's just like the very final polish before we merge it. Yes?
Can you change the border?
Oh yeah, right, I forgot about that, yeah. So just to prove, this was also in the React demo kind of, to prove the point that this ends up doing the same things as React. As this is rendering, things are updating, you can go inside and, for example, take this circle and look at the style here and change it from black to red, and it just becomes red. All the rest continues rendering and continues animating the same way. You can change the radius. What would happen if we do this? Something, no, that's a bad idea. Maybe we do this. Yeah, so this is proof that the rendering model is basically we only update the parts of the DOM that need to be updated because as we're rendering it the first time, we track dependencies between all the collections and all the reactive variables into the render DOM. Thank you. Anything else? Thank you, everybody.
All right, thanks for coming to Devshop. I have one last announcement before we wrap up. We are starting some new meetup groups in the South Bay and also in the East Bay. So please be on the lookout for an email that will be coming to the meetup group, and we'll also be tweeting about it. So yeah, those of you who trek your way up here from the South Bay and also from the East Bay, there's going to be something for you guys.
Jade, when is
Yes.
the next Devshop?
Thank you. The next Devshop is February 27th. It's going to be it's typically the last Thursday of each month, and the next one is going to be February 27th. So hope you can make it again. Thanks. And don't forget to subscribe.